Hey guys, tonight we begin with the remarkable life and path of Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Japanese swordsman, artist, and philosopher whose fearless spirit helped shape the way of the samurai. From his undefeated duels to the wisdom etched in the Book of Five Rings, Musashi's legacy still whispers to us across centuries, inspiring warriors of the mind and the blade alike. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story begins in 1584, during what historians politely call a complicated time in Japan, and what you, if you could talk as a newborn, might have called an absolute mess. The Sengoku period, or Warring States era, was less about polite tea ceremonies and more about who could backstab faster, march armies quicker, and build castles bigger. Basically, it was medieval Japan's version of an aggressive real estate market, only instead of losing a bidding war, you lost your life. You're born in a little village called Miyamoto, tucked in the rough hills of Harima province. Your family isn't exactly rolling in gold coins, no luxurious silk diapers for you. More likely, you were swaddled in scratchy peasant cloth and handed a wooden spoon to fend off cold breezes. Congratulations. Life hands you your first training weapon at birth. Your father, Shinmen Munisai, is a professional swordsman, and by professional, we mean he takes the art of slicing things very seriously. He's a tough man, a stern teacher, and not exactly the let's toss a ball around the yard type of dad. No, his idea of bonding time with his son would have been, here's a wooden sword, Musashi. Try not to cry when you fall over. Affection is rare, praise is rarer, and gentle hugs are pretty much non-existent. But in a brutal, unforgiving world, softness could get you killed. Your father wasn't raising a child. He was forging a weapon. From the very beginning, there's a wildness about you. You're not the tidy, well-behaved child who bows politely and memorizes verses. You're scrappy, unruly, and probably smelled like mud half the time. While other kids played tag, you were probably figuring out how to ambush them from behind a tree and declare victory. Subtle foreshadowing for your future career. In short, from the moment you blinked into the blinding Japanese sun, your fate was already whispering in your ear. You were not meant to live a quiet, peaceful life. You were meant to fight, to wander, and to carve your name into history one duel at a time, preferably while looking slightly disheveled. And judging by the state of the country, you were about to get plenty of practice. Your playground isn't a grassy field or a cozy backyard. It's the hard-packed dirt of Miyamoto village, where the wind smells of smoke, steel, and a little too much horse. Forget lullabies and fairy tales. Your bedtime stories are about heroic samurai cleaving enemies in half with one swing. Your crib mobile? Probably a few rusty swords dangling precariously from the ceiling. From the moment you can walk, or rather, stagger like a tiny drunk warrior, your father Munisai has you gripping practice swords. While other kids are learning to write simple kanji, you're learning how to parry a death blow. Call it an unconventional education. There's no participation trophy in your household. If you lose a sparring match, you don't get a cookie. You get a fresh bruise and a lecture on why hesitation equals death. Munisai is a hard man. Legend says he won official duels under the Ashikaga shogunate, but parenting wasn't exactly his strong suit. His love is sharp-edged, practical, and delivered with the subtlety of a cannon blast. Praise? Maybe once, when you didn't fall flat on your face after a heavy blow. Otherwise, silence. Because in his mind, survival is its own reward. And yet, something in you thrives under this pressure. While other boys dream of feasting and fame, you dream of battle rhythms, of predicting an opponent's next move before they make it. You don't see the sword as just a weapon. You see it as an extension of yourself, like an iron heartbeat echoing in your hands. You are not pampered. You are not comforted. Instead, you are honed, day after brutal day, like a blade against whetstone. Even as a boy, you start to grasp the cold truth of your world. Victory is not about being stronger. It's about being smarter, faster, and just a little bit meaner than the guy across from you. The villagers whisper about you. That wild kid with the stare too sharp for his age. That boy who never cries when he bleeds. Some shake their heads. Some nod in respect. But one thing is clear. By the time you are barely a teenager, you are already something different. Not just a boy. Something far, far more dangerous is growing inside you. It happens when you're 13. That awkward age when most kids are trying to figure out how to catch a fish or maybe survive a spelling bee. You, however, are preparing to commit legalized murder. Welcome to feudal Japan, where puberty comes with a side of sword fights. A travelling samurai named Arima Kihei shows up in town. He's from a local martial arts school, and he's cocky enough to think a village boy would never dare challenge him. Big mistake. Word gets around fast. Musashi is going to duel a real samurai. The villagers gather, whispering and placing discreet bets. Even your own family looks at you the way one might look at a chicken marching into a fox den. They expect a massacre. They expect you to be the one on the ground, bleeding and embarrassed. But here's the thing. You're not interested in losing. You're 13, scrappy, furious at the world, and wielding a wooden sword that still smells like firewood. It's not exactly the stuff of heroic legends, yet. When the duel starts, Arima Kihei does what seasoned swordsmen do. He underestimates you. Maybe it's your size. Maybe it's the fact you probably still have dirt smudged across your face from that morning. Big mistake number 2. Without any formal bowing or dramatic speeches, you lunge. Fast, savage, raw instinct. You catch him off guard, crashing into him with all the grace of an avalanche. Before the villagers can gasp, before Arima can even pull himself together, he's on the ground, groaning, bleeding, humiliated. A grown samurai, bested by a barefoot teenager wielding a glorified tree branch. You don't just win, you announce to the world that Musashi is not a name to be ignored. It's a name to fear. Of course, your father's reaction is complicated. Pride, maybe, relief, certainly. But also a hint of fear, because even Munisai can see it now. The boy he forged is starting to surpass even his brutal expectations. As for you, you feel nothing but clarity. You were born for this. Not to farm, not to bow and scrape, but to duel, to defeat, to rise. First blood has been drawn. And somewhere, deep inside your young heart, you realize it will not be the last. You'd think after your first public duel and public victory, life might settle down. Maybe a nice apprenticeship. Maybe a stable job carving sandals or fixing roofs. You know, something normal. Not a chance. At 15, you make a decision most adults wouldn't dare. You leave home. No tearful goodbyes. No packed lunch. Just a sword, a tattered travel cloak, and a stubborn refusal to live anybody's life but your own. You become a wanderer, a ronin. In a world where status is everything, where being tied to a lord offers protection and purpose, you choose absolutely none of it. It's like showing up at a medieval job fair, flipping the table, and walking into the woods whistling. Why? Because deep down, you know, if you tie yourself to someone else's house, someone else's rules, you'll never become the warrior you're meant to be. You aren't here to play politics. You aren't here to shine armor and pour sake for some pudgy lord. You're here to master the sword, on your terms, or not at all. Of course, wandering isn't exactly glamorous. You sleep under trees, not silk canopies. You eat whatever you can find, which often means rice if you're lucky, bark if you're not. Your travelling companions? It's mostly crows, stray dogs, and the occasional curious peasant boy whispering, "Mama, why does that man look like he hasn't bathed in a year?" But you don't care. The wilderness becomes your dojo. The rivers sharpen your senses. The cold wind teaches you patience better than any old master. And with every mile you walk, you shed another piece of the boy you were. The village kid with muddy feet? Gone. The ambitious teenager who beat a samurai? Still there, but growing into something fiercer. You start seeking out dojos, challenging their best students to duels, learning from every swing, every miss, every victory. Your skills evolve fast, too fast for the world to keep ignoring you. People start whispering your name along dusty roads and smoky inns. There's a wild Ronin out there, a boy with a blade sharper than most men's minds. And somewhere on those endless roads, a new thought grows inside you. Maybe the sword isn't just for killing. Maybe it's a path to something bigger than survival. You just have to keep walking. If there's one thing that separates you from the other samurai of your time, it's this. You don't look the part. At all. The typical samurai strides into town with his hair neatly oiled, his armor polished to a mirror shine, his swords tucked neatly at his hip like badges of honor. Meanwhile, you show up looking like you just wrestled a bear, and maybe won. Your hair, wild, your clothes, torn, stained, sometimes half missing. Your feet, probably muddy, definitely calloused. You are not the carefully curated image of the warrior elite. You are something rawer, something far more unsettling. You look less like a courtly samurai and more like a wild wolf that learned how to walk on two legs, and somehow picked up a sword along the way. And people notice. Oh, they notice. At first, they laugh. Who could take you seriously? You look like you'd be better suited chasing chickens than facing seasoned warriors. But laughter turns to confusion. Then fear. Because once you draw your sword, once you move, all that scruff and dirt and feral energy turns into something terrifyingly efficient. No wasted motions, no hesitation. Just pure, unfiltered violence, delivered with the grace of a predator. In duels, you don't dance around, trading pretty cuts for the sake of ceremony. You go for the kill, fast, ugly, final. It's not dishonorable. It's survival. It's the understanding that battles aren't won by who looks best swinging their sword. They're won by who walks away still breathing. The polished samurai? They're still worried about whether their helmet is straight. You're already inside their guard, smashing their pride into the dirt. Rumors start to swirl around you like autumn leaves. He fights like a demon. He doesn't fight to win points. He fights to survive. If you see him, run the other way. You become a living ghost story, passed from village to village, whispered over cheapsake and campfires. But you don't care about reputation. You don't even care about winning fame. You care about one thing only, getting better, sharper, deadlier. Because deep inside you know, the world isn't kind to wolves, and only the fiercest survive. With the open road as your home and a sword for a pillow, you dive headfirst into a new hobby, challenging strangers to deadly combat. Some people collect seashells. You collect victories, preferably before lunch. It's a simple strategy. Walk into a new town. Find the local dojo, or the most arrogant swordsman standing around. Challenge them to a duel. Win. Move on. You're like a one-man natural disaster, leaving a trail of bruised egos and broken bones wherever you go. If there were a tourism board for rural Japan, they'd be putting up warning signs. Beware. Wild Ronin crossing. And the best part? No one knows how to deal with you. You're too unpredictable, too raw. You don't fight by the book. Mostly because you probably never read the book in the first place. You don't wear fancy armor. You don't bow 6 times before drawing your blade. You don't politely wait for your opponent to compose a haiku before the first strike. Nope. You size them up in an instant, find the fastest route to victory and take it, brutal, efficient, and without apology. Sometimes you use a real sword, sometimes a wooden stick. Once, according to later legends, you beat a man senseless with a random boat oar you found lying around. Because for you, it's not about the weapon, it's about the mind behind it. And your mind? Sharp as the edge of a katana, and twice as dangerous. With every duel you learn. Not just about technique, but about people. how they telegraph their fear through trembling hands, how their eyes widen a fraction before they strike, how pride always makes them predictable. You're not just fighting bodies, you're dismantling spirits. By the end of your teenage years, your win column looks ridiculous. More victories than birthdays, more bruised opponents than there are flavors of sake. You don't stick around to bask in your fame. No trophy ceremonies, no parades. You just nod once, maybe mutter something profound like, and head for the next dusty road, the next opponent, the next lesson. Because somewhere inside you know you're not dueling for money, or even for survival anymore. You're dueling because it's shaping you into something unstoppable, something that even you are just beginning to glimpse. By the time you hit your late teens, you've developed a bit of a reputation, somewhere between fearsome sword prodigy and that slightly terrifying guy who might eat nails for breakfast. What really makes you stand out isn't just your fighting record. It's the fact that you refuse to do what everyone expects. You don't pledge loyalty to any lord. You don't tie yourself to a dojo or a war band. You are, proudly and stubbornly, a ronin, a masterless samurai. In a culture where who you serve is almost more important than who you are, this is basically like showing up to a royal banquet in muddy rags and challenging the host to an arm wrestling match. Respectable samurai look at you like you're some kind of walking scandal. No master? No patron? No permanent address? Surely he must be mad. But here's the thing they don't understand. Freedom is your sharpest blade. Without a master to impress, you answer only to yourself. Without political games, you spend your energy honing your skills instead of polishing someone else's boots. Without a castle to protect, you carry your whole life on your back, light, fast, ready. Sure, life's rough. You don't get fancy armor handouts. You don't attend elegant tea ceremonies where noblewomen giggle behind silk fans. You don't even get a reliable dinner most nights. One memorable week, you survive entirely on stolen radishes and questionable river fish. But what you do get is priceless. The ability to evolve, adapt, and grow beyond the rigid limits set by tradition. Everywhere you go, lords and generals try to recruit you. Some offer gold, others offer fine horses, land, silk kimonos. A few even offer daughters, though frankly, given your wild looks and constant smell of campfire, it's unclear if those offers are serious or just optimistic. And every time, you bow, sort of, and refuse. Because your path isn't gilded in gold, it's paved with blood, sweat, and quiet revelations. You're not here to be anyone's servant. You're here to master something bigger, the art of war, the art of strategy, and maybe the art of mastering yourself. You are Miyamoto Musashi, masterless, fearless, and just getting started. Somewhere between your 100th duel and your 1000th mosquito bite sleeping under the stars, something shifts inside you. Fighting isn't just about strength. It isn't just about speed. It's about seeing the world differently. You begin to realize the sword is only the surface. Beneath every clash of steel is a battle of minds, a silent conversation in feints, pressure, rhythm, and fear. Victory doesn't belong to the fastest or even the strongest. It belongs to the one who understands. So you start thinking differently. When you approach an opponent now, you don't just study their stance or their sword. You study them, how they hold tension in their shoulders, how they blink when nervous, how they hesitate when the wind gusts dust into their face. You start predicting movements before they happen, not with magic, but with brutal attention to human weakness. You realize a duel is won long before the first blade swings. It's won the moment your opponent doubts themselves. It's won the moment they feel like prey, and you feel like the storm coming for them. In many ways, you stop fighting people altogether. You start fighting their intentions. This is when you truly begin to separate yourself from the rest of the samurai world. While others are busy memorizing ancient techniques and polishing the same tired sword forms, you are inventing something new, something terrifyingly effective. You turn dueling into chess, played at the speed of lightning. Sometimes you win before the opponent even realizes the fight has started. A subtle shift in your stance, a smile, a real one, or something close enough to scare the life out of them. An unexpected movement, breaking all rules of style and tradition. And when they fall, confused and defeated, it isn't just because you hit harder. It's because you lived one move ahead, and they never even realized it. You start to see life itself like this. Everything is strategy. Everything is timing. Everything is the balance between stillness and sudden, merciless action. The sword is just a tool. The real weapon is the mind. And yours, sharpened by hardship, hunger, and endless battle, is becoming as deadly as any blade you could ever wield. Somewhere along the endless roads you travel, beaten, bruised, and slightly more mosquito-bitten than any legendary warrior should admit, you have another realization. Why settle for just one sword when you can wield two? Yes, 2 hands, 2 swords. A revolutionary concept that every proper samurai back in their polished castles would scoff at while carefully adjusting their very formal, very traditional armor. You, however, don't have the luxury of worrying about tradition. You worry about staying alive. You worry about winning. So you start training, relentlessly, a katana in one hand, a wakizashi, the shorter sword, in the other. Most people's brains short-circuit just thinking about it. But how do you parry and attack at the same time? But the styles, the schools, the sacred forms. Meanwhile, you're out in the woods beating tree trunks into splinters, learning to move both arms independently, flowing like water, unpredictable as a summer storm. At first, it's clumsy. You drop swords, you trip over your own feet. At one memorable moment, you nearly disarm yourself with yourself. But slowly, painfully, something clicks. 2 swords, not a chaotic mess, but a deadly dance. One hand deflects, the other strikes. Left, right, left. A rhythm as natural as breathing. You're no longer bound by the rigid patterns taught in dojos. You create your own rhythm, your own style. And soon, your 2-sword technique, Niten Ichi Ryu, becomes as much a part of you as your own heartbeat. The beauty of it? No one knows how to fight you anymore. Single sword fighters are confused. Spearmen are frustrated. Archers don't even get the chance to be frustrated. Your enemies expect 1 threat. They get 2. They prepare for a sword duel. They get overwhelmed by a hurricane. The more formal samurai shake their heads in disgust, muttering into their sake about disrespecting centuries of tradition. But you don't hear them. You're too busy surviving, winning, innovating. You don't fight for style points. You fight to carve a new path through a dying, rigid world. A path where adaptability, not ancestry, is the true mark of mastery. 2 swords, 1 purpose, victory, and you're just getting started. By now you've carved quite a reputation for yourself. You're the storm that drifts into town, flattens the local champion, and disappears before anyone can even start carving your name into a wooden plaque. But eventually, storms need bigger mountains to clash against. Enter the Yoshioka school. The Yoshioka clan isn't some scrappy village dojo. They're elite. They're powerful. Their name carries weight in Kyoto, the cultural heart of Japan, a city filled with silk robes, carefully trimmed beards, and egos the size of small mountains. The Yoshioka aren't just teaching swordsmanship. They're practically an institution. Winning a duel against them would be like an upstart garage band crashing a Royal Opera House and stealing the show, which naturally sounds like exactly the sort of thing you'd do. So you march into Kyoto, dusty, scruffy, and probably smelling faintly of river water and stubbornness, and you issue a challenge to Yoshioka Seijuro, the head of the school. Seijuro, being a proud man and utterly convinced that you are just some wild vagabond with a death wish, accepts. The fight is set. Formalities are arranged. Everyone expects it to be a swift, embarrassing lesson for you. A public reminder that proper warriors don't get out-dueled by wild ronin. Everyone, except you. When the duel comes, there's no elaborate speeches, No dramatic poses. Just you, calm as a stone in a riverbed, facing down a master of high society swordsmanship. And when the moment strikes, you don't hesitate. You smash through his defenses like a typhoon through a paper screen. Seijuro is defeated. Not politely, not ceremoniously, brutally. The once proud Yoshioka master is humiliated in front of his students, his patrons, and half of Kyoto's gossip-loving citizens. And you? You don't stick around to gloat. You don't strut through the streets gathering applause. You nod once, maybe tug your ragged cloak tighter against the breeze, and melt back into the city's shadowed alleys. Because in your mind, there's no final victory yet. Only the next duel. Only the next challenge. You've cracked the foundation of an empire. But you know, the Yoshioka won't let this insult stand. Not without blood. And you're ready for them. The Yoshioka school does not take humiliation well. Losing to some wild ronin, a man who probably sleeps closer to goats than golden screens, is not just a bruise to their pride, it's a full-body injury. So, naturally, they do what any prestigious institution with a bruised ego would do. They send in the next brother. Enter Yoshioka Denshichiro. You might say Denshichiro is the bigger, angrier sequel to Seijuro. More muscle, more rage, less patience. He challenges you to another formal duel, determined to erase the family's embarrassment, preferably by erasing you from existence. The city buzzes with anticipation. Another Musashi fight. Will the feral swordsman finally meet his match? Will honor be restored? Will someone please pass the sake? You, however, are as calm as ever. If Denshichiro thinks anger is going to win this fight, he clearly hasn't been paying attention. The day of the duel arrives. The crowd gathers. Bets are placed. Vendors sell skewers of grilled fish to excited spectators, because nothing pairs better with mortal combat than a light snack. When Denshichiro strides into the arena, he looks like a storm cloud in human form. Armed, armoured, and bristling with fury. You look pretty much the same as always. Worn sandals, simple clothes. A look in your eyes that says, I've already mapped out 3 ways to end this, and 2 of them are mildly insulting. The duel begins. Denshichiro charges in heavy and hard, aiming to crush you with brute strength. But you, light, fast, strategic, step just out of range, reading his every move like a badly written play. A few exchanges later, it's over. You land a devastating blow. Denshichiro collapses. The Yoshioka's last hope crumples into the dirt. The crowd is stunned. Again, some gasp, some cheer. Some immediately reconsider their life choices. The once mighty Yoshioka clan has now lost 2 sons to a scruffy, barefoot duelist who probably sharpened his sword on a rock that morning. And you give no speeches, no proud boasts. You simply turn and leave, silent, steady, like a force of nature that doesn't need to explain itself. But deep down, you know, the Yoshioka aren't finished. They have one more desperate move left, and it's going to be anything but honourable. Defeat stings. Public, humiliating defeat. Well, that burns like pouring sake over an open wound. And after losing not 1, but 2 heirs to your blade, the once proud Yoshioka school is teetering on the edge of collapse. They have a choice. Accept the losses with dignity, or throw whatever scraps of honour they have left into a bonfire and gamble everything on one last desperate strike. Guess which option they choose. The Yoshioka declare another duel, but this time, it's not a simple man-to-man match. Oh no, they plan an ambush. The target? You, obviously. The goal? Wipe the smug look off your face and restore honour with a hail of swords. Their strategy is simple. Lure you into a final duel against Matashichiro, the new young head of the family. A child barely old enough to shave, thrust forward as a figurehead while dozens of armed Yoshioka warriors hide nearby, ready to strike the moment you show yourself. Fair? Absolutely not. But fair stopped being part of the conversation about 2 dead brothers ago. Now, here's what makes you, well, you. You know it's a trap. You can smell it like rotten fish from a mile away. And what do? You show up early. Before the ambush is fully set. Before the hidden swordsmen are in position. Before anyone expects you. You glide through the twilight mist like a ghost, sword already drawn. Matoshichiro barely has time to scream before you cut him down. A clean, fast strike, efficient as a thunderbolt. Chaos erupts. Yoshioka men come pouring out of the shadows like angry ants. Dozens of them, swords flashing, shouting, cursing your name. And you? You don't freeze. You don't falter. You move, fast, precise, a blur of deadly efficiency. You cut through the would-be ambushers like a blade through rice paper, slipping through their ranks, disappearing into the dusk before they can even organize themselves. By the time they realize what's happened, you're long gone, a rumor riding the wind. The Yoshioka school, once the pride of Kyoto, collapses in disgrace. And you? You don't stick around to celebrate, you just keep walking. Because for Miyamoto Musashi, the journey isn't about revenge. It's about perfection. And perfection demands more than victory. It demands evolution. After your dismantling of the mighty Yoshioka school, your legend explodes like a firecracker in a dry village square. Only, instead of awe and admiration, your name carries a new flavor of fear. You're not just seen as a dangerous swordsman anymore. You're something else. Something harder to define, and even harder to confront. Word spreads across provinces like wildfire. Musashi doesn't just defeat opponents, he destroys families. One Musashi is worth an entire battalion. If you see a disheveled man carrying 2 swords and smelling faintly of river mud, run. And here's the crazy part. It's not even that much of an exaggeration. At this point, it feels like armies would be better suited to fight you than individual swordsmen. One-on-one duels? Child's play? Ambushes? Try harder. Even groups of trained fighters can barely touch you. You've reached a level where facing you feels less like fighting a man and more like trying to fist-fight a thunderstorm. Part of it is skill. Sure. Your 2-sword technique, your strategy, your raw speed, they're unmatched. But the real secret weapon? Psychological warfare. Most men are beaten before they even draw their swords. When they hear your name, they remember the stories. The boy who killed a grown samurai at 13. The ronin who dismantled the Yoshioka like snapping twigs. The wanderer who uses anything, a wooden oar, a random branch, probably a particularly angry goose if it came to it, to achieve victory. They step onto the dueling ground already sweating, already doubting. And doubt, to you, smells better than victory. Because you've learned something critical. A sword can kill the body. But fear kills the soul. Sometimes you win duels without even swinging. An opponent sees that cold, steady look in your eyes, that slight tilt of your head that says, "I've already killed you in my mind." And they crumble. Some surrender, some flee. A few bravely charge, only to realize too late that they're charging into a force of nature. You're no longer just Musashi the duelist. You are Musashi the storm, Musashi the unstoppable. And as you continue walking the broken roads of Japan, one thing becomes clear. It will take more than numbers, more than blades, to stop you now. With the Yoshioka crushed and your reputation soaring, you could have done what most warriors dreamed of. Found a rich lord to serve. Earned a fancy title. Maybe even snagged a castle with decent plumbing. But no, you choose the road. Again, because deep down, you know, castles are cages, even if they're lined with gold. And so begins the long, winding, dust-choked chapter of your life. The years of wandering. You drift from province to province like a blade caught on the wind. No plan, no map. Only one constant, the search for mastery. Everywhere you go, you seek out new opponents, new styles, new ideas. Sword masters, monks, spearmen, bandits. It doesn't matter who or what they are. If they know something you don't, you want to face them. Sometimes you challenge them. Sometimes they challenge you. Sometimes you just bump into them while trying to steal a particularly juicy rice ball and somehow end up in a duel. Travel life is messy. Your style evolves again and again. Like a river carving new paths through stone, you adapt, refine, and shed what doesn't serve you. You don't duel for money. You don't duel for fame. You duel for the thrill of becoming. Every opponent is a mirror showing you your own flaws. And every time you break that mirror, you come away sharper. Your clothing becomes even rougher. Your sword even quicker. Your mind even more dangerous. People start telling stories about you. Strange, mythic stories. Musashi fought 3 men at once using only a fan. Musashi defeated a master spearman with a broken fishing pole. Musashi once stared so hard at a bear that the bear apologized and left. Are they true? Maybe. Maybe not. But you don't bother correcting anyone. Because you're not interested in polishing your legend. You're interested in sharpening your soul. And if that path leads you deeper into forests, over frozen rivers, through dusty mountain passes, so be it. The road is your home now, the endless horizon, your companion. While other warriors tie their fates to lords and lineages, you tie yours only to the blade, and to the endless, hungry quest for something greater than victory. Something like true understanding. And you know, you're getting closer. As the miles wear on and the seasons blur past you, something unexpected begins to stir deep inside your battle-hardened soul. A longing for something. More. Not more duels, not more blood, not even more victories. Something quieter, something deeper. Art. It starts subtly. After a long day of training or travel, you find yourself picking up a brush instead of a sword. At first, your calligraphy looks like what happens when a cat runs across wet ink. Not exactly museum quality, but just like with swordsmanship, you don't expect to be good right away. You expect to become good, through patience, through discipline, through relentless practice. Soon, you're painting landscapes. Hills, rivers, birds frozen mid-flight. The brush strokes almost like the movements of a sword, flowing, precise, alive. And you realize something profound. The same spirit that guides your blade can guide your hand. Swordsmanship and art are not opposites. They are twins. Both demand presence. Both demand balance. Both demand the ability to see the world clearly, and then leave a mark on it with grace and certainty. It's not just painting either. You carve sculptures from wood. You practice tea ceremony with the care of a general preparing for war. You study poetry, philosophy, Zen Buddhism. You become strange, in a way. A ronin who can kill 10 men before breakfast and paint a delicate ink wash of a cherry blossom branch by lunch. Your peers don't really know what to make of it. Musashi? The guy who crushed the Yoshioka? The guy who fought Sasaki Kojiro? He's painting now? Some laugh, some scoff. You don't care, because you see something they don't. Victory is temporary. Mastery is eternal. A sword wins battles. Art wins immortality. And deep down, you understand something even more important. One day your body will falter. Your sword hand will slow. The duels will end. But your mind, your spirit, your vision, those can endure. Through ink, through wood, through words. You are no longer just a warrior. You are becoming a creator, carving your spirit into the world, one perfect brushstroke at a time. And as you sit by a quiet river, brush in hand, a smile ghosts across your face. The path is wider than you ever imagined. And it's only beginning. As you wander deeper into your 30s, with a trail of defeated opponents stretching out behind you like a particularly violent parade, a new name starts to reach your ears. Sasaki Kojiro. At first, it's just whispers in smoky inns and dusty crossroads. There's a man with a blade like a lightning strike. His sword is so long it could swat a bird from the sky. He's undefeated, just like you. Interesting. You're not the type to get rattled by reputation. After all, you are the reputation other warriors have nightmares about. But Sasaki Kojiro is different. He's not some arrogant dojo master waiting to be embarrassed. He's not a desperate noble's bodyguard clinging to the old ways. He's fast, deadly, precise. And he carries a sword so absurdly long, the monohoshizao, the drying pole, that you half wonder if he's compensating for something. You don't say it out loud, that would be rude. Kojiro's style, the swallow cut, is famous. It mimics the movement of a bird's wings, quick, elegant, impossible to predict. He's not just good, he's a force of nature, a mirror of you, but polished, regal, almost civilized. And in a weird way, you're excited. Finally, a real challenge. Not another pompous blowhard to humiliate. Not another crowd of amateurs to outthink. Someone who might actually force you to reach deeper. Someone who might sharpen you in ways no duel ever has. Word eventually reaches you that Kojiro has been appointed as the fencing master for a lord. High honor, great pay, fresh clothes. You're still sleeping in barns, occasionally using your travel cloak as both blanket and breakfast napkin. But that doesn't matter, because you know, paths like yours and Kojiro's are not meant to run parallel forever. They're meant to collide, spectacularly. The rumours swell around you like the gathering clouds before a storm. Two undefeated swordsmen, two masters of timing and death, two legends, but only one destiny. And somewhere inside, beneath the calm and the calligraphy, the old fire stirs again. The wolf lifts its head. The blade hums with anticipation. You smile, faintly, because you know what's coming. And you're ready. The challenge doesn't come wrapped in gold or sung by heralds. It comes in quiet, serious words passed through wary messengers. Sasaki Kojiro has accepted. He will meet you on the battlefield. No politics, no lords, no armies. Just two men, two blades, and a promise hanging in the humid air. The duel is arranged for a tiny, rocky island in the Kanman Straits, Ganryujima. Remote enough for privacy, flat enough for a clean fight, dramatic enough that the gods themselves might pull up a chair to watch. You hear the details with the same calm you've carried for years, where others would pace nervously, sharpening blades and writing tearful farewell letters. You barely shrug. Challenge? Accepted. Still, you prepare, but not the way your enemies would expect. You don't spend sleepless nights polishing armour. You don't compose elaborate death poems or fuss over ceremonial garb. You don't even bother getting a haircut, judging by the wild mane you're sporting these days. Instead, you sharpen your mind. You study Kojiro the way a hunter studies dangerous prey. You learn his timing, his technique, his habits. Fast, precise, deadly at mid-range. Good. Because you've already decided you're not going to fight Kojiro at his own game. That would be suicide. You're going to change the game entirely. You ask for a small boat to take you to the island on the day of the duel. You carve a wooden sword, a bokken, from an oar during the ride. A simple piece of wood, roughly the length of Kojiro's absurdly long blade. No polished steel, no gleaming armour, just rough wood and sharp intent. Because you understand something most warriors never learn. Victory isn't about using the best weapon. It's about using the best mind. As you ride toward the island, the wind in your hair and the salt on your skin, you feel it. The stillness before the storm. The coiling tension of two titans about to collide. The quiet, thrilling certainty that this day, this fight, will echo through time. And you smile, just a little, because you're not here to survive. You're here to win. The boat bumps against the shore of Ganryujima, and you step out, cradling your makeshift wooden sword, a carved oar, rough and unpolished, still smelling faintly of river water and stubbornness. Across the beach, you see him, Sasaki Kojiro. He's already waiting. Tall, lean, composed, dressed in elegant robes, carrying his famous monohoshizao, the drying pole, a sword so long it looks like it belongs on a ship's mast, not in a duel. He's polished, prepared, perfect. And you? You look like you wandered onto the beach by accident after a particularly spirited night in a tavern. The crowd, retainers, witnesses, curious fishermen, murmurs as they see you. Some snicker. Some shake their heads. He's late. He's disrespectful. He's armed with a stick. Kojiro's lips tighten into a sneer. He's already angry, already off balance. Good. You intended it that way. You didn't come late out of arrogance. You came late to disrupt him, to break his rhythm before the blades even crossed. Because you understand, a duel isn't won when the swords strike. It's won the moment the opponent loses control of his mind. Kojiro, unable to contain himself, unsheathes his massive sword in one fluid, beautiful motion. They say the swallow cut, his signature technique, can sever a bird's wings mid-flight. Fast, precise, unbelievably deadly. But as he moves, something happens. Something subtle, something critical. He hesitates, just for a blink. Thrown off by your ragged appearance, your audacity, the absurd sight of a man calmly advancing with a boat oar. And that's all you need. You surge forward, faster than a striking hawk. Your wooden sword whistles through the salty air. One single perfect blow. The crack of wood against skull echoes across the island. Kojiro collapses. Instant. Final. The mighty Sasaki Kojiro, the swallow cutter, the fencing master, the undefeated legend, lies broken on the sand. Silence falls. Mouths hang open. The fishermen stop chewing their rice balls mid-bite. Even the gulls seem momentarily stunned. And you? You lower your oar, breathing steady, heart calm. Another duel, another victory. But something in the air feels different, heavier. Because today, you didn't just defeat a swordsman, you ended an era. And deep inside, you know, victory will never taste the same again. Ganryujima lies quiet after the clash, the waves lazily lapping at the blood-sprinkled sand, the wind whispering through the grass as if afraid to disturb what just happened. You stand over Sasaki Kojiro's fallen body, the crude wooden sword still heavy in your hand. Victory. Complete. Undeniable. But as the adrenaline fades, something colder seeps into your bones. You look around. The witnesses, the samurai retainers, even the fishermen, all stare at you like they're seeing a ghost. Not a man. There's no triumphant cheering, no celebratory cries, only silence. A heavy, uncertain silence that clings to your skin more tightly than sweat. Because today wasn't just another duel. It wasn't a local champion or an arrogant heir you bested. It was him, Sasaki Kojiro, the sword saint in his own right, the only man they thought could stand as your equal. And now he lies there, crumpled like a broken fan. You realize something in that moment, something you hadn't truly understood until now. At a certain height, there are no more rivals, there are no more equals, just a lonely peak, high above the clouds, and you, standing there alone. You turn without ceremony and walk away, leaving the body behind, leaving the stares, the judgment, the whispered legends, already beginning to sprout like weeds in the sand. As you board the small boat to return to the mainland, the wooden oar-turned sword clunks against the side of the vessel, awkward and out of place, just like you feel inside. The boatman, an old man with weathered hands, rows silently, not daring to speak. You stare back at the shrinking island, a small speck of land where two destinies clashed and only one survived. Ganryujima will forever be tied to your name. Poets will sing of it. Scribes will exaggerate it. Old men will argue over it in smoky inns you'll never visit. But you feel no joy, no pride, only a sense of something irreversible. The path you walk now isn't the path of a swordsman seeking glory. It's the path of a swordsman seeking meaning. In a world where fewer and fewer opponents remain, the oar creaks, the water shimmers, the wind carries your name across the waves, and you wonder, quietly, what's left to conquer when you've already defeated everything? Kojiro's death lingers in the air long after you leave Ganryujima, not as a triumph, not as a trophy, as a weight. You try to brush it off at first. Another duel, another victory, just like the dozens before it. But this one is different, because Kojiro wasn't a thug from some backwater village. He wasn't an overconfident dojo master with more pride than skill. He was a true swordsman, a mirror of your own relentless pursuit of mastery. And you killed him, not just physically, but spiritually. You shattered a man who, had the world been kinder, might have stood beside you, not across from you. People celebrate, of course. They retell the story in 100 different ways. Musashi arrived late to unnerve Kojiro. Musashi carved an ore sword on the way just to mock him. Musashi struck him down before Kojiro could even blink. The tales grow bigger, louder, more ridiculous. By next month, someone will probably claim you rode to the island on the back of a giant fish and fought with a tree trunk. You hear these stories. You even smirk at a few of them. But deep inside, none of it feels like victory. It feels like the closing of a door you can never open again. With Kojiro gone, the world seems smaller, duller, a little emptier. Because now you know, there are fewer and fewer men left who can meet your blade with true understanding. Fewer who can dance on the edge of death with you, seeing the same beautiful, terrifying truth. You didn't just defeat Kojiro, you outlived him, and somehow that feels like a heavier burden. Late at night, sitting by a lonely campfire, you catch yourself replaying the fight in your mind. Not with regret, not with guilt, but with a kind of aching respect. Kojiro was your greatest challenge. And now, he's a ghost that will walk beside you for the rest of your days. You stare into the flames. The road ahead stretches onward, longer, lonelier, quieter. And somewhere inside, you understand. The more victories you claim, the more solitude you inherit. It's not the duels that will be your undoing. It's the emptiness they leave behind. After Ganryujima, the world hails you as unstoppable. The swordsman who felled Sasaki Kojiro. The ronin who fears nothing. The legend who walks among mortals. And yet, for all the admiration, all the whispered awe that trails your footsteps like dust, you feel nothing. Victory used to burn bright in your chest. A fire fueled by the thrill of survival, the hunger for mastery. Now it flickers low, starved of meaning. You wander through villages where children pretend to be you, swinging sticks and shouting your name. At inns, drunkards lift their cups in your honor, spinning tales so grand that even you wouldn't recognize yourself in them. Musashi fought 10 men at once and didn't spill a drop of his tea. He can slice a falling leaf in half from 20 paces away. He once beat an entire dojo using nothing but his glare. You smile politely when you hear these stories. You nod, you bow, you drink their rice wine. But inside, it's like chewing ash, because you know the truth they don't. The duels were never about fame, never about building a legend. They were about the pursuit, the endless, painful, beautiful pursuit of something perfect, something whole. And now that pursuit feels hollow. You used to dream of opponents worthy of you. Now you dream of quiet rivers, empty paths, the wind through pine trees. Because there's no opponent left to chase. The world is too small now, too fragile. You watch other warriors polish their armor, polish their reputations, chase titles and court favor. You feel like a wolf among house dogs. You don't belong in courts or castles. You don't belong on thrones or under banners. You belong nowhere, and everywhere. Victory, you realize, is a strange sort of death. The death of striving, the death of hunger. You have won too much. And the price of that is solitude. Deep, vast solitude that no drink, no song, no cheering crowd can ever fill. So you keep walking, not toward glory, not toward battle, but towards something quieter, something you can almost hear on the edge of the wind, a whisper of a different kind of mastery, a mastery not of others, but of yourself. The road stretches on, but your footsteps begin to slow, not because of age. Your body is still sharp, your reflexes still faster than a striking snake. No, it's something deeper, something tugging at the edges of your soul, whispering that the battles you need to fight now aren't out there anymore. They're inside. You start to withdraw from the life of endless dueling, not because you fear defeat, but because victory no longer feeds you. You've slain giants, you've conquered masters, and in doing so you realize the only true enemy left is yourself. You spend more time alone now, days, weeks, even months wandering the mountains and forests in solitude. No crowds, no challengers, just the whispering bamboo, the rushing rivers, the endless, watchful sky. The sword stays at your side, but you draw it less and less. Instead, you draw ink across paper, crafting calligraphy that flows like water. You carve wood, shaping figures not to kill, but to create. The same discipline that honed your killing edge now turns inward, honing your spirit. You study Zen Buddhism more deeply, not in smoky temples, but on your own, through experience. You meditate under waterfalls. You fast until your body feels lighter than air. You sit in perfect stillness, hours passing like seconds. You start to understand that mastery isn't about domination. It's about harmony, balance, knowing when to strike and when not to. You realize that the perfect duel isn't the one where you crush your opponent. It's the one you never have to fight. Conflict, you see, is a wave. True mastery is stepping aside before it crashes. The wild wolf that tore through Japan's best swordsman is still inside you, but now he sits, calm, at the edge of your consciousness, not caged, not broken, tamed, not by fear, but by wisdom. People still seek you out, of course. Young hotheads who want to test themselves. Old masters desperate for one last taste of glory. Sometimes you fight them. Sometimes you turn them away with a word, a glance. And in both, you are victorious. Because the battle for your soul, the hardest battle of all, is one you're finally starting to win. Eventually, even the open road feels too crowded, even the mountains too noisy. You need somewhere quieter, somewhere where the last distractions, fame, memory, even ambition, can't find you. So you retreat to a cave, not a grand temple, not a castle on a hill, a simple, cold, damp cave carved into the side of a lonely mountain. Its name is Reigando, the Spirit Rock Cave. Fitting. You bring little with you, a few scrolls, a brush and ink. Your swords, of course, but they remain sheathed, gathering dust as the days melt into months. Inside the stone walls, you are no longer Musashi the warrior. You are Musashi the student, a student of stillness, a student of death, a student of life itself. The cave teaches you differently than the sword ever did. It teaches you patience, the way the dripping water hollows the hardest stone. It teaches you humility, when even the spiders spinning lazy webs above your sleeping mat seem wiser than the chatter of human ambition. And most of all, it teaches you perspective. For the first time you truly see. The duels, the victories, the shattered schools and humbled lords. They were only shadows on the wall. The real battle was never with them. It was always with yourself. You write feverishly in the dim light, crafting essays on strategy, philosophy, the mind, and the void that binds all things together. Each word is a duel against ignorance. Each sentence is a parry against ego. Your brush becomes your sword now, swift, deliberate, merciless against falsehood. In the silence of Reigando, you finally hear the faint music that was always playing beneath the clash of steel, the song of mastery, of balance, of understanding. People occasionally come looking for you. Curious students, would-be challengers, pilgrims hoping for a glimpse of the legend. Some you meet with kindness, some you send away with a few hard truths. But mostly, you are alone, and you are at peace with it. Because you know now, true strength is not about defeating others. True strength is about mastering the only thing that truly matters, yourself. And deep inside, under the stone and the silence, you are winning the greatest duel of your life. One breath at a time. Inside the cold embrace of Regando Cave, with the wind sighing at the mouth like an old friend, you decide it's time. Time to pass on what you've learned. Not through another duel, not through another battle, but through words. You sit cross-legged on the bare stone, brush in hand, ink ready, and begin to write. The Book of 5 Rings, not a diary, not a brag sheet of your victories, a guide. A sword manual, yes, but far more than that. A map of the mind. A blueprint for mastering conflict and mastering life itself. You divide your teachings into 5 scrolls, each representing an element. Earth, water, fire, wind, void. Each scroll builds upon the last, a layered strategy for anyone seeking true understanding. The Earth Book, Foundations, Stability. Knowing your stance, your grounding, whether in battle or in life. The Water Book, Adaptability, Flexibility, moving around obstacles, flowing through challenges rather than smashing against them. The Fire Book, Aggression, Timing, knowing when to strike, when to unleash force without hesitation. The Wind Book, Perspective, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of others, not to copy them, but to better know yourself. And finally, the Void Book, the most mysterious of all, the space between thought and action, the state of pure awareness where mastery truly lives. You write plainly, without flourishes. No need for grand words. Truth doesn't need decoration. Every line is hammered out like a blade on an anvil, direct, sharp, tested in the furnace of real battle and hard-won wisdom. You don't write for fame. You don't write to impress scholars. You write because the path you've walked has shown you something precious. And it would be a crime to let that die with you. Each stroke of the brush feels like breathing life into a second self, a Musashi who will endure long after your bones turn to dust. You know most will misunderstand it. Some will skim the surface. A few might grasp its depths, but that's enough, because mastery was never meant for the many. It is a narrow road, walked by the few willing to endure, to suffer, to sharpen themselves against the world until they are blades in human form. And as you dot the final line on the final scroll, you set your brush down and smile. Your greatest duel is over. Your legacy is written. The seasons turn outside the mouth of the cave. Leaves fall, rivers freeze, flowers bloom, and you feel it, deep in your bones. The end is near. Not a sudden enemy to be outdueled, not a sneak attack to be parried. No, this is the one opponent no sword can defeat. Death. You greet it the way you have greeted every opponent, with calm, with respect, without fear. Your body, once lean and unbreakable, has grown slower. The hand that carved legends from air now trembles slightly when lifting a brush. The endless miles you once walked without thinking now weigh heavier on your legs. But your mind, clearer than ever. You don't cling to life like a miser clings to coins. You don't rage against the fading light. Instead, you prepare the way a true warrior does, deliberately, honorably. You craft your own death like you crafted your duels, with precision, with dignity, with total awareness. You dress in your finest clothes, not the robes of a lord, but simple, clean garments fit for a man who has nothing left to prove. You sit cross-legged, your swords by your side, one hand on your katana, one hand resting gently on your wakizashi, not to fight, to honor. The 2 blades that served you through 1,000 battles deserve to bear witness to your final breath. Your students, the few you trust, gather quietly outside the cave. They watch, not with sorrow, but with reverence, because they understand. This is not a death of defeat. This is a death of mastery. You close your eyes. You breathe in the mountain air, cool, sharp, alive. You feel the pulse of the earth beneath you. You feel the blood slowing in your veins. No fear, no regret, only acceptance, only peace. In one final, steady motion, you sit perfectly still and pass from this world, a warrior to the last. No drama, no desperate grasping at life, only stillness, only strength. Miyamoto Musashi dies as he lived, undefeated, unbroken, untamed. And as your spirit drifts beyond the veil, somewhere, in the far distance, 1,000 cherry blossoms drift on the wind, and the sword falls silent. Long after your body fades into the quiet earth, your name refuses to die. It clings to the mountains, it rides the rivers, it echoes in the halls of warriors and scholars alike. Miyamoto Musashi, the man who lived by no one's rules, who carved his path with blade and mind, who turned battles into art and solitude into a kingdom. They tell your story in ways both grand and strange. Some say you fought 100 men single-handedly. Some say you could slay a bird mid-flight with a single throw of a wooden sword. Some even say you were half demon, born not from woman, but from the storm itself. You, who once slept under trees with nothing but your swords and a stubborn will, now live on in ink and legend, across scrolls, paintings, novels, plays. Your Book of 5 Rings becomes a treasure not just for swordsmen, but for generals, businessmen, philosophers, anyone seeking to master conflict, mastery, or even themselves. In a world that changes with every passing season, your teachings remain stubbornly true. Observe clearly, move decisively, adapt like water, strike without hesitation, know yourself utterly. You become more than a warrior. You become an ideal, a symbol of the eternal struggle between discipline and instinct. A reminder that true mastery is not about beating the world, but mastering the storm within. Statues are raised in your honor. Swords are named after you. Video games, manga, movies. Your spirit finds new forms you could never have imagined, sparring across screens and pages. But none of it captures the full truth. Because the real Musashi is not the man with 2 swords standing triumphant over broken foes. The real Musashi is the man in the cave, brush in hand, writing words for a future he would never see. The man who understood that strength without wisdom is hollow, that life without reflection is a blade without an edge. You are more than victories. You are more than battles. You are a path, a question, a mirror held up to anyone who dares to walk alone. And as centuries pass, as kingdoms rise and fall, one thing remains. Your story still whispers to those bold enough to listen. Walk the path. Face yourself. Become more. And somewhere, deep in the stillness between heartbeats, the spirit of Musashi smiles. If someone were to ask, hundreds of years after your death, what was Musashi's greatest lesson? They might expect tales of swordsmanship, of technique, of dueling brilliance, and they wouldn't be wrong. But they wouldn't be right either, because your greatest lesson wasn't how to win a fight. It was how to live, and how to die, without fear. You taught that mastery isn't just about defeating others, it's about defeating weakness within yourself, the fear of failure, the hunger for approval, the desperate need to cling to comfort and certainty. You showed that to walk the true path, you must be willing to walk it alone, without titles, without applause, without even the promise of success. You must be your own master, your own rival, your own flame in the darkness. Through your battles, through your solitude, through the simple, fierce grace of your life, you taught this unshakable truth. Strength without purpose is hollow. Skill without spirit is meaningless. Victory without honor is ash. The duels were never the point. The blood spilled, the reputations shattered. They were just echoes of a deeper struggle. The real enemy was always within. The doubts, the fears, the illusions, and you conquered them not with brute force, but with clarity, with patience, with relentless, merciless honesty. Your Book of Five Rings isn't a book of how to kill. It's a book of how to live, strategically, wisely, courageously. Even today, when a young fighter laces up their gloves, or a tired soul faces a crossroads, or a quiet mind searches for meaning in a noisy world, your spirit is there, not shouting, not boasting, just standing quietly at the edge of the path, nodding once, as if to say, "You already have everything you need. Now, walk." Your life was a battle, your death was a meditation, and your legacy is a call, a challenge that stretches across centuries to anyone bold enough to hear it. Be like Musashi, not because he never lost, not because he never feared, but because he chose every single day to master himself. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.